Hello everybody and welcome back to the Maniacal Mini. Today we are working on the Exorcist tank from the Adepta Sororitas. We are coming in with Vallejo Red Terracotta through the airbrush, and we are just going to base the bottom half of the tank, basically where those statues start on the sides down, just to get a base for our rust color. Okay, so now for the fun part. I have mixed down Decalia Lilac and 1-to-1 with some MIG Ultimate Chipping, and we are just going to come through the airbrush all over where we put down our rust earlier, and we are going to come through in a few minutes with some chipping tools. Okay, and these are scratch and chipping brushes from Green Stuff World. I'm going to stick to the edges pretty much. I'm going to give some random spots of some wear and tear on the actual panels, but for the most part we're going to be sticking to those edges. So this is an actual bristle brush coming in from Green Stuff World. I wanted to put this where it looked like they were maybe climbing up on top of the tank, all that wear and tear from the soldiers that would be climbing up onto that part. You know, something fun, just some more wear and tear to make it look more grim and dark. Okay, so now moving on to the braziers that will hang off the sides of the tank. I have base coated this in black, and I am coming in now with antique gold, and that is from the Green Stuff World Metallic selection. I absolutely love this gold. It is probably my favorite. It's a lot more ancient, pretty much. Ancient and antique is the best way to describe it. It's a lot more matte, and it's perfect for the look that we're going to achieve. Along with the antique gold, this is going to be our another staple metal color in this whole scheme. This is a tin metal gray. This is also from Green Stuff World's Metallic selection. I just really like this one compared to the other ones. It's not quite a quicksilver, but it's not quite like a dark metallic, like a gunmetal. It just pops a lot more, and it holds up rust so well. Coming in through the airbrush now with some white primer. This is going to set the base coat for our OSL. Since I'm a sucker for ghostly green glows, we are going to be coming in with Hexwraith Flame through the airbrush. Okay, so now for the really fun part, we're going to start working on all these awesome little bits and bobs and filigree and all that cool stuff that's on this tank. So the first thing we're going to do is start working on those statues and the stone inlets that they're set into. This is going to be a base coat of Rakarth Flesh. I really like Rakarth Flesh for a stone color. Once you get some Agrax Earthshade over it and come in with some highlight steps, I just believe that it holds up a lot better than any other stone colors or anything like that. So we're going to lay that down now. Okay, so we are going to liberally apply some Agrax Earthshade all over our stones and all over the little ones up there. I painted those little guys that are above the door there, as well as the little statues there, and you can see the inside of the tank, all the areas around the pipe organs and the wings along the back. Okay, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of white scar for my highlights on my stone pieces. I know we don't really do a lot of highlights in the grimdark style. Everything's supposed to be a lot more matte and muted. I don't really care. I think it looks a lot better once you get into the later stages of adding the streak and grime and all that other stuff. To have that extra bit of highlight to help out and pop up is never a bad thing. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so bringing in Caliban green now. My color scheme for this army for my fiance, it was lilac with green and yellow. So this is going to be the green that comes in a little bit more sparingly, obviously, than the lilac. Not as sparingly as the Averland Sunset that we're going to get into next. But you'll see this in a couple different spots along the model. Okay, so we're going to be bringing in Averland Sunset now. I absolutely love this yellow color. It's almost like almost shifting towards orange, but it's just so cool. So we're going to be using this as the emblem on the door, as well as those random little filigree spots that you'll see. That kind of like etching design that's all over all of these models, honestly. So yep, right here. So we're going to come in and we're going to just lightly edge highlight all of that. And we're going to keep doing it all along the entire tank. There's this carpet that sits up inside of the area where our rider will sit. I'm just going to coat that in Baraknar Burgundy. We're not going to add any highlights, anything, and no shades or anything like that to it. I just wanted to have a nice little pop color in there. So I still have the piano coated black on the inside here. Luckily, through the painting gods, I didn't hit it with any spray splatter, so it's perfectly good to go. So I'm going to bring in some white scar now, and I'm just going to lightly, almost dry brush these keys white, just to get that nice piano look. Okay, so I looked up a couple images, and my favorites were the super brassy pipe organs that you see in a lot of those, like, just ancient churches. I always love the look of those, so there's a lot of cool brass colors out there, you know, a lot of deeper brasses and stuff like that. I do enjoy brassy brass from Vallejo Game Air, but however, I'm going to use Brass Scorpion from Citadel for this one. It just pops a lot more. The brass color holds up a lot more to weathering a little later on, so we're going to use that. Okay, so we're going to bring back in that tin metal gray to hit these notches on the side here that we're going to connect our braziers to a little later on. It's also going to serve as the metal brackets around our door that you can see here in this one, and we're going to bring it in a couple other spots a little bit later. So bringing back in that antique gold, there's a whole bunch of these pillars that dot the entire model along the sides in between these statues. There's a couple that hang around the back pieces over there, the top pieces around the actual pipe organs. So we're going to come through now and we're going to hit all those. So you can see that there's some wood paneling in the back here. We're just going to be using dryad bark as the base for that, and we're going to come back in a dry brushing step in a minute. While that dryad bark dries, we are going to come in with corn red, and we're going to be hitting all the missile tips that sit inside of our pipe organ all around the back here. This is going to be a Gorthor brown dry brushing step. I just wanted to get a couple of different patches of different shades of brown into that wood. So we're going to come in later as well with a little bit of moss deposits to drop in there so we get a little bit of color variation. So thankfully we made our steps easier here with the Rakarth flesh that we laid down earlier. It's going to be perfect for some contrast paint for our roses. So this is actually going to be Flesh Terror red contrast paint for the buds. We're going to follow it up with some Veridis green ink from Green Stuff World for the stems and leaves. So we're going to be using some Xandri dust as the parchment paper that hangs down in the front of the tank here. And then we're going to use a little bit of Rakarth flesh for the sigil that hangs off of one of the parchments. In corn red one more time, and that is going to be for the wax seal that holds that to the parchment paper. So when I freehand, I try and just get the thinnest brush that I have in my arsenal, and it's really just etching random spots. As you can see, I used a little bit of corn red to make a bigger letter there, and then just etched in with some black to go along the side of it. You can see on the next one here, I just did 2 more in red, and then I'm just going to come back through with some black, more faded on that second one. And we're going to bring back in that tin metal gray for the clasps that hold down the parchment. We're going to switch up the metallics a little bit. We're going to bring in some gunmetal from Green Stuff World Metallics. This is going to be for the turret that's mounted inside of the tank here, as well as the 2 on the side of the parchment paper that's right up here that I'm doing now. There's also 1 more spot around the back. There's these vents that go along the back of it, and I'm also going to coat those in that gunmetal as well. Our barricade in the front is going to get a treatment of that tin metal gray. And that tin metal gray again for the fence that blocks in our rider. Okay, so moving on to the rider itself, this is the basis for all of my Adepta Sororitas. Like I said, it's the color scheme that I do. This is going to be that Caliban green for the cloth. As you can see, the Decalia lilac is already down all over the armor. Okay, and we're going to pop some Averland Sunset right onto the emblem that's on the chest of the rider, as well as the emblems that are on either side of her shoulder pads. I just gotta say, I absolutely love the head on this model. The little separate brass organ on the headpiece is amazing. The detail is so cool. So we're gonna bring back in that brass scorpion to do the headpiece on her as well. Moving on to her chair now. This is going to be corn red again. This is just over black. We're going to just hit the main cushion in the center here, and as you can see, there's 2 separate cushions on either side, so we're going to hit those as well. And we're going to bring back in that dryad bark to hit in the wood on this chair as well. And then it's going to be antique gold to fill in the rest of the chair. Okay, so for the little cherubs that hang off the side, I gave them a zenithal highlight, and I'm just going to coat in 2 passes with Peccatum Flesh Wash ink from Green Stuff World. It's a great base tone for flesh, especially when you're layering up later. It's got great coverage and obviously doesn't block the details because it's a wash. And this is going to be the Sepia Ventus ink from Green Stuff World. This is the base for all of my bone colors. So anytime I do bone, I usually lay the Sepia Ventus and then work up from that because it gives a great detail underneath and shows you exactly where those highlights are going to be. I'm just going to pop a quick highlight on the skull. This is going to be Sun Bleached Bone from Green Stuff World. This is from their Undead Flesh paint set. It's a really, really nice bone color, and it goes down perfectly over that sepia tone. also going to pop a quick highlight on the flesh with some zombie flesh tone, also from that Undead Flesh paint set from Green Stuff World. I just want to kind of mute down the skin tone just a tiny bit because I want it to play off as like malnourished and diseased when we're done covering it with everything else. Then bringing back that antique gold, this is just going to be for the halos that hang above their heads. And corn red one more time for the intestines on the guy that is kind of like half hanging out, and then it's also going to be the cloth for the other cherub on the other side. Okay, so I'm going to do this in stages just because this is a lot of model. So I'm just going to keep coating with streaking grime from AK Interactive, and then coming in after each piece with a Q-tip with a lot of mineral spirits. This is a very delicate step, especially around those wings on the cherubs, and the corn red. Those colors tend to rub off a lot easier, I've noticed, if you're not very careful. So nice and light, lots of mineral spirits, and we'll just take our time and go piece by piece. Now for my favorite part, we're going to add some realism. So this is going to be corrosion texture from AK Interactive. It's a great base for when you want to rust up your game. And for this pass here, this is going to be heavily thinned down rust streaks with mineral spirits. And anywhere that I did those scratches and chipping earlier, I'm just going to drop a little bit in there and let it drizzle down like it's actually streaking off. This was why we based and set up that way earlier, exactly for this step. This is another enamel I don't really get to use too often. It's called engine oil, and I'm just going to drip it out of the braziers here, and it's just going to add this oily, disgusting look to the braziers. Okay, so bringing in some AK Interactive Muddy Ground texture, I'm just going to stamp along the tank treads at the bottom, as well as the bottom panels along the sides of the tank, just to add some realism, like it's been trekking through the dirt. I'm also going to pull in some splatter effects of mud and add to that whole, churning through the earth type. Okay, so for my final step here, this is just watered down PVA glue. I suggest having like a Q-tip or a cotton swab handy, just to clean up any extra that you might put down, because you don't want it to clump up and look weird. But we're just going to sprinkle down snow micro balloons. My whole army's theme is winter lilac, so all of them right now have these snow micro balloons sprinkled over the top of like my battle sister squad and all that other stuff, so it's really going to set the tone. And that's going to be it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. This was a beast. This whole model took me about a week. I absolutely had the time of my life. I'm definitely going to do more vehicles in the future, but as of right now, we will see you in the next one, and I really appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you. Bye.